Hi there! You are now the lucky owner of my absolute favorite classroom management tool, the Reading Block Transition Deck. In this tutorial, I will show you how to customize your slide deck so it aligns with your unique reading block schedule. Before we start editing, please make sure you have completed steps 1 through 3 in the Start Here document. This will make your customization process much easier. To begin, open the document titled Reading Block Transition Slides Skeleton Template. On the sidebar, you will see several sections, and to the right, you will see a slide with tutorial information on it. The most important thing to remember when customizing your slide deck is do not edit the numbers or the timers on the transition slides. These numbers are linked together with a series of transitions that make the countdown timer functional. If you accidentally edit them, simply close the file and then go and open the original skeleton template for a fresh start. Now, let's get to customizing. If the section drop-downs are open in your presentation, take a minute to close them all so things are easier to navigate. Keep the first drop-down section open so you can customize your first slide. To do so, simply follow the directions on the screen. Alright, so it says here, click and drag this tutorial slide over to the side of the workspace so it no longer covers the entire slide. Next, it says click the Layout button on the Home tab. Scroll down and select the day of the week that corresponds with the slide deck you're designing. We're going to start by designing the deck for Monday. Click File, Save As, and save the deck. You're going to include the name of the weekday in the document title so that it's easy for you to remember that this particular deck is for Monday. And then we're going to click Save. Now, it says here, click this box and hit Delete or Backspace on your keyboard to delete this tutorial slide. And then save your progress. Next, you will collapse the day of the week slide and open the section titled Round 1. This is where you'll need to start referencing your reading block planner template. On my planner, I see that I've scheduled to meet with Group 1 and then host a whole class mini lesson during my first round on Monday. Therefore, I need to add a slide that says Group 1 under my Round 1 section. To do so, follow the directions on the screen. So this first layer says click and drag this tutorial slide over to the side of the workspace so it no longer covers the slide. Click the Layout button on the Home tab. Scroll down and select the slide from the Round 1 collection that corresponds with the reading group you plan to meet with during Round 1. So since I plan to meet with Group 1 during Round 1, I'm going to select the slide that says Round 1, Group 1. Now I'm going to click this box and hit Delete on my keyboard. And then there's another tutorial because there's a second step for customizing this slide. And this time we're going to click on the Transitions tab. We're going to find the section labeled Advanced Slide. I want you to make sure that On Mouse Click is not selected and that After is selected. This is where you're going to type in the duration that you want your first reading round to last. I like my reading rounds to last for 15 minutes each on Monday, so you'll see that I've typed in 15. It is essential that you include the colon when you're typing in the time, because if I simply type 15, that actually only equals 15 seconds. So I'm going to type in 15:00, and that equates to 15 minutes. Now, we also want to set a sound for this slide because when this slide appears, we want to draw attention to it. We want the students to look at the slide deck. A sound is a great way for that to happen. So you can click this sound drop-down menu and pick the sound that works best for you and your class. I tend to lean toward more calm sounds, and a couple recommendations are the sound opening and also the sound chimes. I'm going to stick with opening for this one. So once you've got that set up, you can click this tutorial box, hit delete on your keyboard, and save your progress. So just so you can see, we've got our Monday slide and we've got our first round slide. After your first round of reading, you'll probably want your students to transition to a mini lesson, a brain break, or another round of reading. You'll select a different slide depending on your personal plan. Regardless, you are going to customize the transition slides I've put in place by adding the image that matches your unique reading schedule. Remember, you do not want to edit the numbers or the timers on these slides because they're already connected together for you. So you're going to reference your reading block planner to help you decide which slide to pick. As you can see on my plan, I'm going to host a mini lesson and then meet with group 2 at the beginning of the second round. Therefore, I'm looking for the slide that says transition to mini lesson, then next round. More specifically, I'm looking for the slide in that collection that shows that I'll be meeting with group 2 next. To add this slide to my deck, I'll follow the directions on the screen. So I'm going to click and drag this slide over to the side, and you can kind of see the number for the countdown timer peeking through back here. We don't want to move that. It says here, do not click or edit the number 120 or any of the countdown numbers. We're going to go to the Home tab. We're going to click Layout, and then we're going to scroll down to the different types of transition slides. So you're going to see they're a little lower in the scroll. You'll have transition to brain break, then next round, transition to mini lesson, then next round. Let's imagine you need to do 2 activities in between rounds. You could transition from a mini lesson, then a brain break, or vice versa, brain break to mini lesson. And then the last transition is transitioning into the next round of Daily 5. So as I mentioned, I want to transition from the first round into a mini lesson and then the next round. And I want my kids to know that during that next round, I'm going to be meeting with group 2. So this is my slide, mini lesson, then group 2. And it says here I want to repeat the same process for the next slide. So I'm going to click that next slide, clicking layout, scrolling down, transitioning to a mini lesson, then the next round. And I'm going to be meeting with group 2. All right, I'm going to click back to that first slide where the tutorial is. I've repeated that same process. And remember, the transition times for these 2 slides, they're already calibrated for you. So we can just go ahead and click delete. And now we're going to add sound to the slide. So we're going to click the transitions tab, making sure we do not modify anything under this advanced slide section. The only thing we're going to do is add our sound. And then I can highlight this tutorial box, click delete, and save my progress. And now it's starting to look more like a slide deck. All right, now that our transition is set up, we can collapse that section and open the mini lesson brain break section. Go ahead and follow the directions on the screen to add a slide for your mini lesson or your brain break. Clicking home, then layout, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to host a mini lesson, so I'll scroll down here. And there's those 2 options. We have brain break and we also have mini lesson. I'm going to select mini lesson. Then I'm going to click the box, delete that portion, and work on adding a timer. I'm going to click on the transitions tab. Under the section that says advanced slide, I want to make sure that on mouse click is not selected. After is selected. And as I mentioned, I want my mini lesson to last for 5 minutes, including that colon, so it's 5 minutes, not 5 seconds. And then I'm going to set the sound that I want my students to hear when the brain breaker mini lesson is over. That'll tell them, okay, it's time for us to transition into our next round of reading. Now I'm going to close this section and open the transition to round 2. Now you're going to notice that the process for these is very, very similar. You just follow those steps and it'll walk you right through. So I'm transitioning into the second round. I'm going to click Home, Layout. I'm going to transition to the next round of Daily 5, and according to my schedule, I'm going to be meeting with group 2 during that round. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to repeat it, Layout, and then transitioning to the next round, settling in with group 2. I can go ahead and delete that and save it. And then I want to add my sound to this slide. So I'm going to click Transition, making sure that we're not touching anything in this advanced slide section, just changing the sound. And then I can delete that tutorial. Now, to complete the rest of your slide deck, you're going to continue to use this same process. Remember to refer to your reading block planner to select the slides that are appropriate for your unique plan, and carefully follow the steps on the screen to successfully customize your slide deck. Now, I want to talk to you about a few modifications that you may need to make to the slide deck. The first thing I want to talk to you about is deleting extra rounds. If you only have enough time in your day for 2 or 3 rounds of reading rotations, you can simply delete the extra sections for the extra rounds. For example, I only have time for 3 rounds each day. Therefore, I don't need the sections for the 4th and the 5th round. So I need to delete those slides. To do so, I'm going to click on the transition underneath round 3. And I'm going to click Delete or Backspace on my keyboard. This message will appear and you can click Delete. Then I'm going to repeat that for everything after round 3. Get rid of all this round 4 and round 5 business. That way, after my 3rd round, then it'll be time for us to tidy up. Another modification you may want to make is to have shorter transitions. If 2-minute transitions are too long for your class, you can easily reduce them to 1 minute. To do so, click the transition slide that says 120, make sure that it's highlighted in orange, and then click the delete or backspace button on your keyboard. And this will leave only that second transition slide, which has a 1-minute countdown. You'll want to make sure that there's a sound on that slide so that you can draw student attention to the slide deck when that slide changes. Perhaps you want students to transition directly from one round of reading right into another round of reading. If you don't plan to have a mini lesson or a brain break between reading rounds, simply delete the sections titled Transition to Mini Lesson or Brain Break. Like this one, I'll click Delete on my keyboard and then confirm that I want to delete. And you'll also want to eliminate the actual mini lesson brain break section by clicking Delete on your keyboard and then confirming that you want to delete that section. This makes it so you're going from one round right into the next round. So you'll see round 2, transition to round 3, round 3. This last tip is something you can use if your reading block takes place right as students are walking in the door after recess, lunch, or a special. Rather than having the day of the week slide on display when students walk through the door, display the slide that shows what will be happening during the first round of reading rotations. This allows students to walk through the door and get started with their first round right away. The reason we want to add an extra copy of the first slide is so that that timer for the first round isn't counting down while students are walking through the door. To make this change, you're going to highlight your first slide and then right click and select copy. And then in that top section, we're going to paste that slide. Now I want to select the slide and go to the Transitions tab and make sure that I change the Advanced Slide section. Rather than having it count down, I'm going to have this slide change on mouse click. This means that your fancy time slideshow won't start until you click the space bar on your keyboard. You'll likely do this after you see your students are in the room and settled for their first round of reading. Once you've designed your slide deck for Monday, you will repeat that process for each day of the week. When it comes time to use your deck with your students, simply click the Present button and your slides will begin. If you're nervous that your deck won't work properly, you can always do a quick check by clicking the Present button and hitting the space bar to quickly view the order of your slides and hear your transition sounds. I hope you enjoy using this classroom management tool and that it makes your reading block a smooth running thing of beauty. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at coreinspirationstore@gmail.com. Enjoy your reading block transition deck!